The Satanic Mill by Otfried Preussler, the third year, 6, living in a dream. Lobush had dropped off to sleep among the bushes on the outskirts of the wood when Crabbit woke him, and he started at him drowsily. "Did you find it?" "What? The knife, of course." "Oh, the knife, yes," said Crabbit. He showed the boy Tonda's knife, snapping out the blade. The blade was black. "You ought to rub it down and grease it," Lobush suggested. "Yes," said Crabbit, "yes, that's what I ought to do." Then they hurried homeward, meeting Vitko and Juro halfway. They had been at Dead Man's Cross and were late back too. "I wonder if we'll get there before the rain starts," said Juro. As he spoke, he looked at Crabbit, as if he saw something odd about him. "The pentagram!" Crabbit's heart lurched. If he came back to the mill without the sign, the master was bound to be suspicious. Then both he and the girl might be in danger. Crabbit searched his pockets for a piece of charcoal, but he knew there wasn't any there. "Come on," Juro urged him. "We'll pay for it if we don't hurry. Let's run." At the moment that the young men left the wood and ran for the mill, the storm broke. A gust of wind tore the caps from Vitko and Crabbit's heads, and a heavy rain beat down, making Lobush cry out. By the time they reached the mill, they were all drenched. The master was waiting impatiently. They bowed under the yoke and received his blows on the cheeks. "Where's the sign in the devil's name?" he cried. "The sign?" asked Juro. "Why there?" And he pointed to his forehead. "I can't see anything there," said the master. "Why, then the rain has washed it off." The miller hesitated and seemed to be thinking. Then he ordered, "Lyshko, get me a piece of charcoal from the hearth and hurry." Roughly, he retraced the pentagram on all 4 foreheads, just above the nose. The touch burned their skin like fire. "Now to work!" They had to toil harder and longer than usual that morning. It seemed an age to the 4 of them before the mark was gone from their foreheads. But at last it was over, and suddenly little Lobush found he could lift a full, heavy sack above his head. "Hooray!" he cried. "Look how easy it is. Just see how strong I've grown." The miller's men spent the rest of the day celebrating, eating Easter cakes and drinking wine, singing and dancing. There were tales told of Big Hat among them, and Andrush, getting a little merry, made a speech, the gist of which was that all journeymen were jolly good fellows, and all master millers should be sent to the devil. "Let's drink to that," cried he, "unless anyone here disagrees." "No!" they all shouted, raising their tankards. But Stashko protested. "What, be sent to the devil?" he cried. "No, no. Satan can come and fetch away all the master millers for himself. May he wring their necks every one." "Right you are, dear brother," Androsh embraced him. "Right you are. May the devil fly away with all millers, starting with our own." Crabbit had chosen a place in the corner, near enough the others, for no one to be able to say he wouldn't join in, and yet he was not really one of them. He kept on the edge of the merrymaking, and while the other young men laughed and sang and made boastful speeches, he was thinking of the singer from Schwarzkolumn and how she met him that morning on the way home, and how they stood and talked to each other. Crabbit could remember every word she spoke, every movement and glance of hers, and he could have spent hours sitting in his corner thinking of her, never noticing how time was passing, if Lobush had not sat down on the bench beside him and nudged him. "Can I ask you something?" "Well?" asked Crabbit, trying not to sound impatient. Lobush was looking worried. "Those things Andrush was just saying? And Stashko? Suppose they come to the master's ears?" "Oh, as for that," said Crabbit, "that's just silly bragging, couldn't you tell?" "But the miller," replied Lobush. "If Lyshko goes to tell him, what will he do to Andrush and Stashko? He won't do anything to them at all." "You don't mean that," cried Lubush. "He'll never stand for that kind of thing." "Well, yes, today he will," said Crabbit. "Today we may abuse the master and wish every kind of plague on him. We may wish him to the devil, as you've just heard, and he won't bear us any ill will today. On the contrary." "Why not?" asked Lobush. "Because if you can get your grievances off your chest once a year," said Crabbit, "why then you'll do what is asked of you all the better for the rest of the time, and as you will find out, a great deal is asked of you at the mill on the fen of Castle." Crabbit was no longer the Crabbit of former days, but for the next few weeks he was living in a kind of dream. He did what had to be done, he talked to the other men, he answered their questions, but really he was far away from all that went on at the mill. He was with the singer, and she with him, and the world around was growing brighter and greener every day. Never before had Crabbit noticed how many kinds of green there were. 100 varieties of grass green, the green of the birch and willow trees, moss green, here and there a twinge of bluish green, the young tender green on the banks of the mill pond, on every hedge, in every bramble bush, and the dark muted evergreen of the pines out in the fen, which were often gloomy, even ominous-looking, almost black, yet now and then, especially toward evening, shone as if they were rimmed with gold. A few times, though not too often, Crabbit dreamed of the girl by night as well. The main features of his dream were always the same. They are walking together in a wood or a garden where old trees grow. It is warm summer weather, and the girl wears a pale smock, and they walk among the trees. Crabbit puts his arm around her shoulders. She bends her head, and he can feel her hair on his cheeks. Her kerchief has slipped back on her neck a little, and he wishes she would stop and turn to him, because then he could look into her face. But at the same time, he knows it would be better if she does not do so. Then no other person could see her face too, no other person who might have the power of sharing his dreams with him. Crabbit's companions noticed that something had happened to change him, and once again it was Leishko who tried to sound him out. It was the week after Easter. Hanzo had given Crabbit and Stashko the job of dressing one of the millstones. They had put it by the door of the grinding room and were busy with their mill bills, deepening the grooves running outward from the middle of the stone. They went carefully, stroke by stroke, so the edges would be sharp. At one point, Stashko went away to sharpen the bill, which was blunted, and it took him some time. Leishko happened to come along with a bundle of empty sacks under his arm. Crabbit did not notice him until he stopped and spoke with him. Leishko always crept about the place quietly, even when there was no need for it. "Well," he said with a wink, "what's her name, then? Is she fair or brown-haired or dark?" "Who?" inquired Crabbit. "Why, the girl who's been on your mind so much lately," said Leishko. "Do you think we're blind and don't notice that someone's turned your head? In a dream, maybe?" "I know a good way to help you meet her. I'm not without experience, you know." Looking cautiously around, he bent down to Crabbit and whispered in his ear, "You have only to tell me her name. I could easily arrange it all." "Oh, be quiet, do," said Crabbit. "I don't know what you're talking about. You're keeping me from my work, you and your foolishness." Next night, Crabbit dreamed his now familiar dream of the singer from Schwarzkollen. Again they were walking among the trees. It was a warm summer's day, but this time they came to an open space in the middle of the wood, and when they began to cross this clearing, they had not taken more than a few steps before a shadow fell over them. Crabbit flung his coat over the girl's head. "We must get away from here quickly. Don't let him see your face." He pulled the girl back into the shelter of the trees, and he heard the cry of a hawk, shrill, piercing like a knife going into his heart, and that woke him. The following evening, Crabbit was summoned to the master. He felt ill at ease as he stood before the miller and saw the master's one eye fixed upon him. "I have something to say to you." The miller was sitting in his armchair like a judge, arms folded, his face stony. "You know that I think the world of you, Crabbit," he went on. "You know you can go farther than most of your companions in your mastery of the secret arts. Yet lately I have had my doubts. Can I trust you? You have secrets from me. You are hiding something from me. Might it not be wiser to talk to me frankly and answer my questions of your own free will, rather than force me to spy on you? Tell me now, what's it about? Then we'll think what to do. In your own best interest, there's still time." Crabbit did not hesitate a moment before answering. "Why, I have no secrets to tell you, master." "Are you quite sure?" "Quite sure," said Crabbit firmly. "Go then, and if you find yourself in trouble, don't say I didn't warn you." Churro was out in the hall and seemed to have been waiting for Crabbit. He drew him into the kitchen and closed the door behind him. "Here, for you, Crabbit." He pressed an object into Crabbit's hand, a small, dried-up root on a loop of plaited thread. "Take it and hang it around your neck, or you'll dream such dreams as will get you into a very bad way." And that's the end of chapter 6.